for all of us. It's about predicting where the consumer is going and getting half of it right.
One of the things we want to do is create ads that don't suck.
Embracing change creates great possibility.
I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Today. Today on the show, I've got Andy Guttormsen. He's the co-founder and chief revenue officer of Circle, an all-in-one community platform for professional creators and brands. On the show today, we talk about his path to creating Circle. It started off getting a job at Teachable and then eventually co-founding Circle with a couple of his colleagues. We also talk a lot about how to build community, part of what Circle is built for. We talk about their benchmark community report that lays out best practices and takeaways for community builders. We talk about how to build a great member experience and how to find the right members for your community and much more. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Andy Guttormsen. Well, Andy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
I am too. Before we get to talking about Circle and business and your background, I hear you like to take very long walks every day. And I'm kind of envious, to be first and foremost. So I want to know, like, why is that important to you? And then second, and more important to me, how do you make the time?
Yeah. So, it's something that I've done for many years. And I started back when I was in New York City. At my first job, I was maybe 22 years old, right out of school. And, New York City is a great place to walk. And I would put, some headphones in my ear and listen to music, but kind of more zoning out. And, I would think about work and life. I'd think about work a lot. But to me, those couple hour long walks were incredibly productive from like a work perspective, just because what it allows you to do is you're almost a little bit more creative. Same kind of phenomenon happens when you're driving. Actually, you tend to have good ideas. You'd be a little bit more creative. You can kind of get lost in thought and zone out. In our day to day kind of work lives, I'm sure, I don't know what your calendar looks like, Alan, but I know what mine looks like, and we're all pretty busy. We're in meetings. It's very rigid. And it's nice to have kind of open-ended time just to let your mind wander and kind of passively and creatively solve problems. The walks gave me that.
I love it. Yeah, I'm sure your calendar looks the same, but it's like back to back to back to back. Some days there's no spot to take care of yourself. Feed yourself.
I know. And in terms of the time and kind of when I build it into my routine, it tends to be sometimes it's very early in the morning. Most of the time though, it's 5-6 o'clock at night, and kind of up till 8 o'clock at night, right? So it is a lot of times around dinner time, and I eat a later dinner, but it's kind of right after work, when back to back, kind of in the zone all day, and that's when I'm just ready to get out, and stand up, move around.
Got it. Well, I am definitely envious of just that time to allow your brain to passively or even sometimes actively solve problems, think creatively, and frankly, just kind of be in your own head. It sounds great, and I don't know that the time would work for me, but I might have to try this in the morning and see if it works for me.
Highly recommend it.
Well, from walking to your pathway and career, like where'd you get your start? For listeners, you are the co-founder and chief revenue officer at Circle, and we'll get into that. But like, where'd you get your start, and how'd you end up co-founding Circle?
Yeah, so Circle has been, at least to this point, a really big win and worked really well. And we can talk more about that. But, frankly, right around kind of my first, 5 or 6 years, I took one of those Wall Street jobs, and I really didn't like it. It was just not for me. It was, I didn't understand kind of what what the point was, when when I was there, and it was really clear, 24 years old, I was like, this isn't what I'm going to be doing for a couple of decades here. So I went, and then I floundered again. I tried to start a company, and it failed. Actually, maybe a couple companies, businesses, at least you can call them, and they failed. But eventually I joined a company called Teachable, which is an online course platform software company. I was probably the sixth or seventh employee there, and I was there for 5 years ultimately, and we sold the company for $250 million. It was a really nice win. We served 50,000 online course creators, people who were coaches, consultants, sometimes from bigger brands, sometimes just kind of individuals. And during that time, I had a bunch of different roles, but all growth marketing related roles kind of came in, and I did make a big impact relatively quickly. And so I ended up overseeing our marketing org right kind of off the bat, about 18 months in. Eventually, when we sold the business, I'd been there for 5 years. I met my co-founder of Circle there, and the two of us. It's funny, when we were at Teachable, we always kind of knew, we had so much respect for each other. I was always thinking, hey, eventually I want to start my own thing again. I really want to figure this out, but I'm going to try and recruit him to be my co-founder. And it turns out he was actually, thinking the same thing. But it's funny, when you start a company, I had a couple businesses fail, and I really, realized that kind of in retrospect, it was too early for me to start those other companies. I hadn't really I hadn't built the skill sets and the experience yet.
Mm, yeah.
And so, but I did feel like I was ready when we were kind of towards the end of Teachable. We had that big win. We sold the business. We had really built a business, and the confidence that comes with building the business. So when you think about starting your own company, at least me, I was kind of thinking about, how can I de-risk this? Really give myself a chance to succeed. There's high opportunity costs. There's a lot of other things, you can be doing instead of starting your own company. And obviously they have a high likelihood of failure. And what I've kind of always found is that actually when like the best companies, they kind of start almost when some type of secret that about like the market or product or the problems you're solving. There's something that's not obvious that you are then uniquely qualified to solve. And what we discovered when we were at Teachable, Encore, who's CEO of Teachable, one of my closest friends and the founder of Teachable, we kind of looked and we realized, hey, if you look at all the top people building online courses, the ones who are really successful, they had this community experience alongside of it. And it turns out it wasn't just people building courses, it's all types of businesses. They have this like community component. And there was a problem, which is like people were building these communities in Facebook groups, except it would be this like, it might be a CMO community, 1,000 software CMOs and really polished and premium. And then they try and build it in like a Facebook group, which is totally off brand. And
Right.
so, what we thought was, hey, let's get into the kind of community space. Let's build a really great contemporary community experience that you can bring into a course platform or your own website or whatever it is. And that, is how Circle started. And actually, Encore was our first investor. I, brought him in to tell him, after 5 years, I was going to leave and start my own thing. He was incredibly supportive and right there in that little lunch, we used to get lunch every single day. He said, I'll be the first check. And then a week later, we were planning my exit and then the path to kind of like raising our first round of funding.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I mean, it happened fast then. I mean, like from you deciding to leave to, was it like literally the next day stepping into this new thing, new Circle?
It wasn't the next day. I think there was about 6 or 8 weeks. And,
Yeah.
I still had to kind of finish up some work and all of that sort of thing. So I ended up, waiting, and Sid and I, we started the company actually a couple months later is when I joined it. So, after I ended up leaving Teachable.
Well, maybe, so Circle is the best way to describe it, but you add on to this is a community platform where you can build and host and allow a community to thrive. Is that fair to say?
That's it. Exactly. And it could be an individual who maybe has a community of gardeners and they do live chats with each other and they have book clubs about gardening. And they do like have discussions and all of that, or it could be some big brand or some major influencer who's built this large following and they kind of want to bring all those people together. So, and everything in between.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. Love it. Well, I mean, I came across Circle myself, so I have some experience I'll share, which is like having a large group of CMOs, chief marketing officers, that needed a new community, right? We had one, it was being disbanded. And within a few weeks, one of the members in, I believe, Italy said, you should check out Circle if you're looking for a platform. And so I
Mm.
did. And it just looked super easy. And I can now report it was super easy. And there's probably, I think, 700 folks now communicating kind of on a daily basis, messaging each other and posting news and insights and things like that. So it works. It
Wow.
works.
That's no small feat. 700
Yeah.
folks in a community.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty. We had a pretty passionate community to begin with, so it wasn't like starting from zero. But yeah, it was like I think I remember the first 50 people on, which were kind of leaders, organizers, if you will, of the club, and then it grew pretty rapidly from there as we started opening the doors to the rest of the group. So yeah, it grew pretty fast. And about I think we started, I want to say, in like the June time frame of last year. So from June to 700, 0 to 700.
Wow.
So
So June of last year. So we're talking 7 or 8 months.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
amazing.
Yeah, it's been good. It's been a good platform. So, well, I know you guys, you're passionate about community and you've got all of these now, many communities on the platform itself. And you've just released a benchmark community report and wondered, if there were a couple key takeaways that you found from the report you want to share on the program.
Yeah, of course. So, first of all, you don't have to just rely on me. Like, we'll make the report available to everybody. But essentially, what it is, I don't know about you, Alan. I appreciate opinions and different perspectives and advice. And I know, heck, anybody listening will get a lot of that right now. But sometimes you just want to know the facts, right? Like sometimes I don't actually want anybody's opinion. I just want to know what's actually happening. Show me the data and let me come to my own conclusions. And so
Hmm.
what we did is we created this community benchmark report, so we have 10,000 customers at Circle, so many of the top communities on the planet. And so we sent them basically all a survey and we asked them a whole bunch of questions about their communities. We looked at all of our different product data, kind of different growth of all of the different communities, stuff like that. And then what we did is we put together this report, which looks at, there are about like 600 what we call platinum communities, which are the ones with the highest engagement, the most revenue, or the people who generally report the most kind of like satisfaction with the communities. The people who are just like really standing out, the community standing out.
Yeah.
And in there, we looked at like how are they different than all of the other communities and what are all the different learnings. So there's a whole lot of learnings. And I recommend folks read it if they're interested in this stuff. It's about 30 pages. It's beautifully designed. But the couple big takeaways. So one of the first takeaways that I thought was really maybe surprising, but maybe also a little bit of a relief is that actually a lot of the most successful communities in terms of revenue and in terms of engagement are actually only like 100 people.
Wow.
And I think it's a little bit of a relief just because for folks who don't have any sort of community yet, it goes to show that actually you can really just get started and it doesn't need to be this really big, massive thing in order to make a big impact on your business. So I'll give you an example of one of my favorite communities. So there's a woman named Dr. Becky from a company called goodinside.com. It's a parenting community, helps parents be better parents. And Dr. Becky, they built this following. It's a media business, and they do things like a lot of like live trainings. They have discussions. Somebody will ask a question, and they'll get like 30 answers about parenting. If it's a parenting question, they'll do office hours and courses, and they'll bring in an expert to teach a workshop. And really what a community is, and it's just different than an audience, right? So it's like
Yeah.
you have this kind of one-to-many experience with your audience where maybe you're like building a following, but your members, or sorry, your audience members are not connecting with each other.
Right.
But what Dr. Becky and the Good Inside team did is they said, look, we're building this audience, but there's so much value that the members have. And what if we unlocked all the value between the members and created this community? And so Dr. Becky, that brand, it started out, building a big audience. And really it's now just this really active community that's grown. It started out, a couple hundred people, but all of a sudden it was thousands of people. And so, you really can start off with 100 excellent members who are fully bought in. And those are almost like your founding members.
Yeah. That's amazing. I mean, and a great example too. I've got to check out Dr. Becky. She sounds like somebody I should know.
She's really impressive. And what's so cool about, communities in general is that they really provide transformation for your members. So I'll give you another example. There's two communities that come to mind that are kind of more customer focused. So Webflow is a website company, like a website builder, and they have all these customers. They're a software product, right? But they also have a community where they bring these customers into the community and they let them ask each other questions. How are you, building this? What are some designs you love? What's some inspiration? All of that, right? And all their customers are, chatting with each other. Kind of, it builds that brand affinity. It helps them stick around, right? Because for retention is obviously so important for software companies, where you're charging a subscription every single month. But on the other hand, then there's the guy, his name is Josh Hall, and he has it's completely separate. He's a coach, and he has, I think it's about 150 people in his membership community. And it's a full-time, income for him. He does really well. But what he's able to do is give those people really great attention because there's not 10,000 of them.
Right.
There's 150 of them. And, he has the marketing site, the landing page for the membership. People come and apply, right? It's not like anybody can buy. But on there, they see exactly what they can get. There's really great copy. They come in and Josh has a one-on-one call with every single one of them, gets to know them, their goals. And they come in and he ensures that they get connected to other members right away. And so, starting small can really be an unfair advantage for you, compared to some of the bigger communities.
Yeah. I mean, in many respects, it's a virtual component of building your network. In many cases, it feels like. And I guess as somebody that likes to introduce people to each other, it also allows you a way to do that at scale. In some respects, if you want to do it at scale.
Totally.
It's interesting. The more I've used it, the platform myself, and think about it, the more you start to see opportunities for communities, big and small, right? I think about like sports teams. My daughter plays high school basketball, and it would be great if like all the parents were on that group, right? Both JV, varsity, freshman team. Be a whole lot easier to communicate and stay up to date and see the schedule and the event calendar and practices and all that kind of stuff too. So it's interesting. So many use cases.
Yeah,
How?
and it's like
Yeah.
there's all these members that it really unlocks the value between people. That's like kind of what it enables.
Right. And we're also busy and on the go. It makes it really easy to stay connected. And not to say anything bad about the social media platforms that are out there. I use LinkedIn all the time, and I think it's great for what it is. But like, it sometimes the platform gets in the way of the communication, if that makes sense. And and especially on other platforms in particular, I think they have to make money, and I get it, but it's gets in the way of what we were hoping to get out of those platforms. So
Yeah, and there's a branding component too.
yeah, that's true.
Like
That's very true.
for instance, for you, I mean, and there are a lot of kind of more like higher end exclusive communities, for instance, on Circle. But frankly, a lot of the people running those, like they have their own brand. They don't want other folks' brands. Like
Yeah.
they have this kind of premium experience that they're providing that they want control over. So frankly, like the platform actually, in their ideal world, nobody even knows it's Circle, right? Like
Right.
you just want to get all the credit.
Yeah. No, exactly. 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 Well, you've given us some great examples of how people are using it. Anything else you'd say about like how to create a great community experience?
Yeah. So the a little cheat code is actually to kind of become a member of a few of these communities that are really great, even if you're not that interested in whatever the community is kind of like oriented around, and actually go through their experiences, get a membership for $50 or whatever it is, go through it, see what great looks like, and go to their landing pages and all of that. But what we really tell people is that you want to simplify things, right? So what that actually looks like is creating this concept of what we call signature gatherings. So, in most of the best communities out there, what they really have are 3 to 4 signature gatherings. A signature gathering is a way to bring people together around some sort of ritual that they kind of become accustomed to participating in. They get a lot of like value or some type of deliverable from it. And it just makes it such a no brainer to be part of the community. Because ultimately, when you promote the community, you're really just promoting these signature gatherings. Now, a signature gathering, there's like 15 different examples that we have that are super common. I'll share a couple with you. So, one example, very common, is the concept of a hot seat. So, hot seats are, one of my absolute favorite signature gatherings. What this is so let's say, Alan, your community, you have, let's say, marketing executives in there.
Mhm.
And what you might do is, let's say you have 100 people in the community or 700 people in the community. You'll break people into smaller groups of 6, 7, 8 people. And once a week, that smaller group gets together maybe, and there's one member who's on the hot seat. And that hot seat might be 30 minutes or 20 minutes. And that member will basically share a really like a tough problem they're having in their business that they want help from the other marketing executives from. I'm a marketing executive. I want to know what other marketing executives, how they've tackled this before. Right. And then this thing, it might be 2 hours or an hour and a half. I'll spend 20 minutes telling, my problem, but then the rest of the time it's spent, those other 5, 6 members are just focused on me and helping me solve my problem. Then every week we rotate, right? So that's a signature gathering. It's really valuable. Heck, I could be part of a community where there's nothing more than just a really great signature gathering once a week, and I'm part of that. Another example could be a book club, right? Much more lighter, kind of more passive. Another example could be every week there's, office hours where, people can come in and ask questions if there's kind of almost a leader of the community that has a lot of expertise in an area. Let's use gardening example again. Another example could be a community where I share my work. Like we're all kind of like working on getting better at something, and I get feedback from the rest of the community. So one of my favorite examples of this, one of the best writing communities out there is from a guy named David Perel. It's a multi-million-dollar course business, community business, and you learn how to become a truly great writer. And so as you're going through it, you'll share your writing, your work, but you also get feedback from other writers and experts in the community and people who have even already gone through the course or people who've been in the community for a long time. That's incredibly valuable. Another example could be that you bring in experts once a week or once every other week or once a month to come in and teach to the group. And we all get together, we learn from the expert. It's a workshop, you go deep on things. The more even community first version of that would be, instead of bringing an expert from the outside, what if we actually tap into the knowledge and expertise of the members already in our community? What if we all as a group say, hey, what do we want to learn together, for the next, few months? Like, what should we put onto the calendar? People vote on it together. Then we identify, all right, who are the people in our community that are really great at this stuff already? Can we have people raise their hand? Can we vote for them and make your experts kind of elevate them in front of the group to teach? You can also have passive stuff where you could have you could take that training and you can bring it into the rest of the community so people can just kind of watch it on their own. Another example of a signature gathering would be like a challenge. Over the course of a week, we're all going to eat really healthy, or we're going to share our work publicly on social media, on Facebook or LinkedIn, to kind of get our voices out there. And we're a little nervous around it. We're all going to do it for the next 30 days or, whatever it is. So these are signature gatherings. There's so many different types of them, but you'll choose 2 or 3 of them that really map well to your personality and the types of experiences you like to do. If you like to be on camera, great, do that. There's other types of signature gatherings. And then also what's going to be valuable to your potential members.
I love it. I love it. I mean, there's so many ideas, and I love the hot seat one. Is as well, like you talked about the first one. And actually, a friend of mine, should give him a plug. He has a whole business around almost exactly that kind of concept. So monthly cohorts meet, have a hot seat, hot issue that they talk about, and then everyone that benefit from the community, everyone trying to help solve those problems or give ideas, tips, tricks, things that's worked for them, things that didn't work, maybe sometimes even more valuable. But it's Drew Neiser is my friend, and CMO Huddles is his business. So it's a great concept, and it
Love it.
does build community very fast because you get to know everybody in a pod, if you will. And then, he creates another signature experience, which is what he calls super huddles, where he brings all of those cohorts together around a specific topic or expert. So I've seen these things in practice. They work. They work. So
Super huddle, great.
yeah, no, I've got to test out a few of the other ones, like the expert in the community aspect, hosting something around them or the challenge thing, I think is pretty interesting. We all have stuff we're trying to do. And in particular, the social media one popped out. Maybe, somebody shares something on social media, and pick a day, right? Every week we go in and we help to boost that content on behalf of the community member or something of that nature. So something like that would be cool.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Well,
Yeah.
how we talked about a lot of ways to like build a good experience. Like anything you've learned in terms of like how people grow their community and market and find the right members for them.
Yeah. So I think there are a couple of different approaches you can take. I don't think there's like any one best way
Right.
to do it. There's what I like to do is think about like who are the folks who are great at growing communities, and what are they actually doing? And so there are a couple of examples that immediately jump to mind. So one example is a guy named Dave Gearhart, who has a community called Exit 5 for marketers. And he shares a lot of his thinking all the time, and kind of just a day-to-day basis on LinkedIn. He has a podcast. He shares his ideas, and he talks about his community often on his podcast. He posts on LinkedIn, but his posts, he'll oftentimes get like these like great questions asked inside of the community, and then people respond to it, and share their ideas and all of that. He'll take that same question that came through in his private community and then post it on LinkedIn and say, hey, what does everybody think? This is a question that's happening in our community right now. What's your answer or whatever? But like he kind of takes a lot of the gold that's happening inside of, for him, what's a private paid membership community, and he takes nuggets of it and he kind of shares it publicly and brings that private conversation more kind of forward out into the limelight. And so it really highlights all the value that's being created in there, and gets people thinking, hey, I'm really enjoying this component on LinkedIn. Maybe I'll enjoy it. Maybe I should just take the plunge and join the community. Another example that comes to mind is, and I'll give you, this is like a much more extreme example. There's a guy named Brendan Burchard. He's a close friend and an advisor to Circle, but he has a really large community called Growth Day, actually. And Brendan, he promotes much more heavily. So, for Brendan, he's building his audiences all the time. And he might even do a kind of monthly launch or, a monthly kind of email sequence where he's inviting everybody in his audience. He's saying, hey, we're opening up the gates. You should come in. By the way, this is also what Pat Flynn does of Smart Passive Income. He has a community of business folks. I think there's about 600 people in the community. It's all paid. They actually do a quarterly cohort where they bring everybody in kind of in groups. That way, when you join the community, you kind of already know a bunch of other people coming in with you. So before you actually get to come inside the community, they almost treat it like an orientation. 2 or 3 weeks before that, you hop onto a call with all the other members that are going to be joining with you. You get to meet them, and people share a little bit about themselves. Everybody kind of learns about each other. There's maybe some vulnerability in there and all of that, but you meet all these people. So when you get dropped into the community, you already know a bunch of faces. You're much more likely to get value right away, stick around. And so I really like the cohorted approach under the right circumstances.
Yeah, it's like not to overly simplify it, but it's like summer camp and your building that you're living in. Right?
Exactly.
You get
Freshman
to know.
orientation in college.
That's true. Yeah, freshman orientation where you got like your dorm mates and getting to know each other, going out to eat, and then it makes the whole college experience, depending on how big it is, a little easier to find your way. That's cool. I love that. Well, I mean, we've talked about so many different styles of communities, both for businesses, for individuals, experts, coaches, etc. Like when you think about like building a community for a brand or a business, like how do you characterize the value, right? It's obviously valuable, but like I'm just curious, you watch all of these groups flourish and just curious how you think about what community value is to a business.
So it can be a few different things. On the one hand, the community itself can just be the product, right, that you are selling access to. So before I shared about Josh Hall. His name is Josh Hall. He has a community for web designers who sell their services freelance. It's a couple $1,000s a year. He might have 150 people in there, right? That's how he makes a living. It's one of his kind of main business lines, and it's all on. He charges directly for the community. On the other hand, there are companies like Circle, for instance. We have our own customer community. Obviously, we eat our own dog food, and there's 16,000 people in there. But for us, it's actually not at all about directly monetizing, right? You get to be part of the community if you're a customer of Circle, which is our software product. And so for us, it's really about our brand and then retention. Like people are in there and they really get to know us and they get to know each other. The members help solve problems for each other. If somebody is trying to figure out like how to be more successful on Circle, they ask a question. You'll get 30 answers from other people who have already kind of solved that thing before. And so it helps us with retention and kind of like the brand and the good feelings that come along with being a customer of Circle. And so that's what a lot of brands, when they think about the value of community, that's what they think about. And especially like if you're a more product focused company, meaning you're not a coach, you're not creating courses. It's more so like maybe you sell like Adobe. Adobe is actually a customer of Circle. There, it's more about like connecting your customers with each other and helping them use the product better, get more value.
Gotcha.
So, I think there are a lot of goals, but you have to really know before you create the community what the purpose, like the role the community is going to play in your overall kind of business, if it's business related.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I've enjoyed getting to know a little bit more about community, sharing many nuggets, if you will, about how to build a better community. Love to get to know you a little bit better. We know you love long walks. And my favorite question to ask really everyone that comes on the show is, has there been an experience of your past that defines or makes up who you are today?
Yeah. One of the more, for me, kind of challenging times that I think really benefited me later is, when my first business failed. I was probably about 26 at the time, 25 at the time, 26 time. My first business failed. I had no money, and I really truly had to start from scratch. I wanted to get into like the tech business and startups and all of that. I had no connections to them at the time. And I went out and I had to apply for a job at Teachable. And I literally applied to be an intern. And I wasn't 21, I was 26, right? So pretty humbling. And by the way, I had to go back and live at home with my parents after that for 6 months or so. And it's really tough, humbling time. And then about 8 or 9 months later, I ended up working at Teachable, landing the job. I mean, that's a whole different story in terms of how I did that. But I really put myself out there for that. And then a year after that, I was running the marketing and growth org at Teachable. We were growing really fast, and the rest is history from there. But that was a really tough stretch, which I kind of had to force myself through, and it really gave me confidence for the kind of the next 8 to 10 years after that.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I can only imagine. I mean, it's the way you described it, humbling, almost a rebuild of yourself in some ways. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, those types of things I think do define who you are. If you were starting this journey all over again, any advice that you'd give your younger self?
Yeah. So I think this is just very practical to me, but I think a lot of people really love the idea of starting a company. And I think that's really admirable. And by the way, you totally should, if you can't get it out of your head, you should go do that. I actually think though, I would have benefited from actually joining a really great company that is fast growing with big upside, with an excellent manager who I could really learn from, and just see what great operations look like. And that would have saved me a lot of time. Eventually I got that at Teachable, reporting into Encore, who's the CEO there. But man, I wish I did that 6 years earlier.
Yeah. It's funny to me. You've said a couple of things from an entrepreneurial perspective, the whole notion of de-risking before you start. And then this notion of, a lot of people love to start companies. I've started or been a part of 9 different businesses myself, and I love starting. And but you have to love operating to keep the business going. And so that notion you just mentioned of making sure you know what good operations looks like, that's critical to actually the dream of what I think most people think of when they think of starting a business.
Totally.
Because 99% of it is operating it, not starting it. So,
and get good co-founders if you can. Yeah, you got to be really, 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 really selective. But when if you find that person, jump on it, because man, it's there's so much pain, along the way, and that other person also again de-risks the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're basically marrying your co-founders.
Totally.
You're going to spend more time with them than you will with your significant other.
Yeah, it's true, and I do. Yeah. And my significant other, she reminds me all the time.
Of course. Well, I'm curious if there's a topic. You're the chief revenue officer, and that includes marketing. Is there anything you think marketers need to be learning more about right now, or maybe something you're just trying to learn more about yourself?
There are 2 things that come to mind, and I don't want to project here because this might be more of a me thing than a broader thing. But something I've gone really deep on in the last few years as a marketer that I didn't go as deep on years before that is just getting a lot better at the kind of operating cadence, financial modeling, forecasting, building the rigor around adding predictability to the business, through the lens of marketing, lead gen, pipeline, all of that. One of probably my favorite resource here is there's a guy named Dave Kellogg. I think his website is kellogg.com. But, one of the things that I always found, challenging as a marketing leader, at least when we were at Teachable, was the targets always go up. You're always trying to
Mm.
grow faster, grow more efficiently. And sometimes that feels like, it's uncomfortable, but I think a lot of the feeling of not being comfortable comes from a lack of control, like not feeling like you have control over the business,
Mm.
and really getting good at, financial modeling, forecasting, predicting pipeline, looking at the full funnel. All of that is actually what gives you that sense of control. And I think, Dave Kellogg, is probably the best I've seen in terms of kind of educating marketing leaders on how to do that. The other thing I'll just say is, like, the whole company is spending a lot of time thinking about AI and just how to be more efficient with, like, leveraging AI in our jobs day to day, and just trying to get creative there and embrace what's coming.
Of course. Well, are there any trends or subcultures that you're following you think other people should take notice of?
Trends? Do you mean trends or subcultures within marketing?
Doesn't have to be within marketing. No,
Um,
anything.
Trends or subcultures? So, the big one that I think about all day, every day is kind of people more doing more creative work outside of their day jobs.
Mm.
And this kind of shift where, instead of people just having one day job, a lot of people will have three or four different kind of smaller jobs, side hustles, different income streams, all of that. Like, there's people becoming creators, and it's just amazing how fast that's happening at
Hmm.
this stage. And so, I always kind of tell people, like, hey, you should, think about, like, what that looks like for you. And also, so as a kind of creator of content, creator of products, all of that, like, what does that look like for you? But then also, when you look at the big businesses, think about, like, how you can, and then you look at the creators out there, like, think if you can start to consume more from the individual creators. Because, like, there's a lot of content stuff you can consume from the big brands. But I'll tell you what, on Sunday, I'm flying out to San Diego to meet with one of our customers. His name is Miles. He's a home chef and he teaches cooking. I'd much rather learn from Miles than some big brand. And so, like, from a consumer perspective, like, I would maybe think, how can I consume more from, like, the boutique kind of individual creators versus the big brands? I think that's a big shift that's happening. And marketers really need to react to it in terms of how they actually sell product.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Well, last question for you. What do you think is the largest opportunity or threat facing marketers today?
I do think this is probably a obvious and cheap answer, but I think AI is a big opportunity and a big threat. So,
Yeah.
specifically, I think for copywriters, that, like, for mediocre copywriters, I think those jobs are going to go away. I
Yeah.
think great copywriters will be always in need, but I think there's there are a lot of, like, white collar marketing jobs that are done by average people, average performers, that will go away. At the same time, I think if you look at any marketing org, any marketing team, and you look at the really high performers, actually, they will become almost more in demand as they get more leverage using AI and creativity and all of that. So I think what's going to happen, this is a great big opportunity for some folks and tough for others, but I think there's going to become even more of a disparity between the truly great marketers and just the, mediocre marketers.
Right. Right. No, it is a little bit of a scary time, but I think you're right. And I guess the best advice is to be great at whatever you're doing, right? That's the that's the best way to capture the opportunity and mitigate the threat.
Totally. And creativity will be kind of the premium. But, like, that's like one of the ways to be great is like, ChatGPT is not going. ChatGPT is pretty creative, you know, but
Right.
it's I think I'm personally not worried at all about
Mm.
AI. I'm just, like, very excited about it.
No, I agree. I agree. And I agree with you. I think creativity will be the premium, but we'll find out
Yeah.
eventually. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. This was really a lot of fun just to get to chat with you, and I appreciate you inviting me to join you.
Well, thank you for building Circle. I appreciate that.
Love it.
Talk soon.
Thanks.
Hi, it's Alan again. Marketing Today was created and produced by me with post-production support from Sam Robertson. If you're new to Marketing Today, please feel free to write us a review on iTunes or your favorite listening platform. Don't forget to subscribe on marketingtodaypodcast.com. Tell your friends and colleagues about the show. I love hearing from listeners. You can contact me at marketingtodaypodcast.com. There you'll also find complete show notes and links to what was discussed in the episode today, and you can search our archives. I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing.